She believed Jake had finally succeeded, until she saw him still stuck as a waiter, tired and barely getting by. What Charlotte did next would change both their lives forever. The soft lighting of the willow table filled the elegant dining room with a gentle glow as Charlotte Morgan, billionaire CEO of Morgan Estates, walked in. This wasn't a work meeting. Her father had invited her for dinner to talk about his newest investment plan. Wearing a stylish designer outfit, Charlotte was used to being the center of attention. But tonight, she was the one who froze. Carrying a heavy tray and weaving between tables was a face she hadn't seen in over 10 years, Jake Dawson. He had been her closest friend growing up, the boy who had big dreams of owning a famous restaurant, the one who amazed her with his kitchen skills. After high school, he had disappeared from her life, and now, here he was, a waiter. Charlotte's forehead creased. How did this happen? As if he could feel her eyes on him, Jake looked up. His eyes went wide in surprise. "Charlotte?" he said quietly. A slow, familiar smile formed on her face. "Jake Dawson, I didn't expect to see you here." He gave a short, breathless laugh. "Me neither." But Charlotte didn't laugh with him. She was looking more closely now, at the tired look in his eyes, how his shoulders drooped under the strain of work, how tightly he held the tray like it was the only thing keeping him steady. Something wasn't right. As they spoke, the full story came out. Jake had spent years chasing his dream, working in kitchens, trying to save money to start his own restaurant. But every time, he was crushed by growing debts and constant setbacks. In the end, he had to let go of the dream. Charlotte's heart sank. This wasn't the Jake she had known. This was someone who had lost everything for a dream he was never supposed to give up. And in that moment, she made up her mind. His story wouldn't end like this. That night, Charlotte couldn't stop thinking about Jake. He had been one of the most gifted people she had ever met, full of passion and ideas. Now he was stuck waiting tables just to get by. It didn't feel right. So she grabbed her phone and called her father's restaurant investment team. "Find out all the details about Jake Dawson's money situation," she ordered. "I want to know exactly how much debt he has and pay it off." Her assistant paused. "Ma'am, are you sure?" Charlotte's voice was steady. "Every single cent. And not just that. I want to help him open his own place. If he still wants that dream, it's his. No more obstacles, no more setbacks." Because this time, Jake wasn't going to lose everything again. Jake sat alone in the dimly lit staff room of the willow table, rubbing his temples after another tiring shift. His feet throbbed, his mind felt heavy, and all he wanted was a bit of peace. Then his phone buzzed. He almost ignored it, thinking it was just another reminder about a bill, until he read the subject. Business loan account balance paid in full. His heart raced. Hands shaking, he opened the message. It wasn't just a payment, it was everything. Every overdue loan, every bit of crushing debt, gone. His breath caught. Cool. How? Before he could take it all in, another email popped up. Morgan Estates, business proposal approved. Tears filled his eyes as he stared at the screen. This couldn't be real. It had to be a dream. Then came a third buzz. A text from Charlotte Morgan. "Dinner tomorrow. We need to talk." Jake covered his mouth as a quiet sob slipped out. Deep down, he already knew. Charlotte had done this. Somehow, she had turned his whole life around in one incredible moment, and tomorrow, he would find out why. The next evening, Jake sat across from Charlotte at a high-end restaurant, the city lights glowing behind her. It all felt unreal. His debt, gone. His dream, within reach. His future, back on track. He still couldn't believe it was really happening. Across the table, Charlotte leaned back in her seat, calm and confident, her sharp eyes watching him. Jake gripped his water glass, trying to keep his thoughts straight. "Charlotte, tell me the truth. Was it you?" She didn't blink. "Was what me?" she asked lightly. He let out a tired sigh. "Don't mess with me. My loans, the proposal. You did this, didn't you?" Her usual smirk softened into something genuine. "Yeah, I did." Hearing her say it made Jake's chest tighten. A rush of feelings hit him. Thanks, shock, and something deeper he couldn't explain. "Charlotte, I can't take this," he said softly. Her eyebrows pulled together. "Why not?" He laughed weakly. "Because it's too much. Starting a restaurant costs a lot. Why would you do this for me?" Charlotte leaned in, her voice calm but firm. "Because you were never meant to give up on your dream, Jake. You were the most gifted person I knew, the one who was supposed to create something great. But life got hard, and you got stuck. That's not right. And if I can remove those blocks, I will." Jake blinked, trying not to cry. No one had ever believed in him like this. Charlotte smiled kindly. Plus, I'm a billionaire. What's the point of having all this money if I can't use it to help someone who truly deserves it? He let out a small, choked laugh. You were always dramatic, she grinned, and you were always too stubborn. Jake looked down at his hands, overwhelmed. I don't know how to repay you, Charlotte. Her voice grew soft. Just promise me one thing. He looked at her. Anything. Open the restaurant you were always meant to. A single tear slid down his face, because for the first time in years he believed it could happen. His dream wasn't lost. It had just been waiting for the right moment. And because of Charlotte, that moment was finally here. 6 years later, the grand opening of Dawson's Bistro was filled with guests, cameras, and reporters. The room buzzed with excitement as people admired the sleek design and chefs worked skillfully in the open kitchen. At the center of it all, standing tall and proud before a large ribbon, was Jake Dawson. The road had been long, late nights, failures, and hard work, but he had made it. He wasn't just a chef anymore. He was a restaurant owner. The announcer's voice rang out over the microphone. And now, a few words from the man who brought this dream to life, Jake Dawson. Cheers filled the room as Jake stepped forward, adjusting his suit. He took a deep breath and looked at the crowd. And there she was. Charlotte Morgan, sitting front row, perfectly dressed, watching him with that same familiar smirk. The same look she gave him the night everything changed. The night she gave him a future. The night she gave him back his dream. Jake smiled and cleared his throat as he stepped up to the microphone. 6 years ago, he began, his voice calm but filled with emotion. I thought my dream was gone. I believed I had to accept that life had closed a door I would never be able to open again. He paused for a moment, took a deep breath, and looked across the crowd until his eyes met Charlotte's. In that quiet moment, she knew exactly what he was trying to say. But someone believed in me, he went on, even when I couldn't believe in myself. And because of that trust, because of that chance, I'm standing here today, not just as a chef, but as someone who now gets to create something meaningful, just like my life was changed. The crowd broke into loud applause, the sound echoing through the grand dining room of Dawson's Bistro. Jake smiled, gripping the large ribbon-cutting scissors tightly, his heart full of pride. He had spent years working hard, struggling, and giving up so much to reach this point, and now it was finally real. With one strong, sure motion, he cut the ribbon. Dawson's Bistro was officially open. Guests and food critics rushed inside, their faces glowing with excitement as the scent of freshly cooked food filled the air. As the celebration went on, Charlotte made her way through the crowd toward him. She folded her arms and looked up at him with a teasing grin. So, do you still think I'm the smartest business mind you ever knew? Jake chuckled, that same spark in his eyes. I never doubted it for a second. He shook his head, his smile turning soft. I still don't know how to thank you for all of this. Her face grew gentle, almost proud. You already have. He blinked, surprised. What do you mean? Charlotte nodded at the lively restaurant behind them. You took a chance and turned it into something greater than yourself. You're building something real. That's more than enough thanks. His throat felt tight at her words. She may have given him the chance, but he had done the work. He had made it happen. He let out a breath and nudged her playfully. You know, I probably owe you dinner or something. Charlotte raised an eyebrow and smirked. Funny. I was thinking the same thing. Jake laughed. All right, but I'm choosing the place this time. As they walked away from the crowd, side by side, Jake turned to glance back at the restaurant behind them, his restaurant, his dream. It wasn't just alive. It was thriving. And it had all begun with one person who refused to let him give up. This wasn't just his success story. It was proof that sometimes second chances aren't just handed out, they're earned.